let me tell you something. You cried your last tear over people who never deserved your loyalty. Let that sink in. You were out here giving your heart like Oprah gave out cars. You get love, you get patience, you get forgiveness. Meanwhile, they're treating you like a doormat. They wipe their dirty feet on with attitude. Nah, that season's over. That version of you, wide open, too kind, always available, it got retired like a worn-out pair of shoes that saw too many storms. You ever notice how the people you did the most for are always the first ones to forget it? You stayed up late listening to them cry about somebody else who hurt them, then turn around and watch them do the same way. Ain't that something? You were a whole therapist, Uber driver, emergency contact, an emotional support hotline, and they still fumbled you like a rookie quarterback under pressure. But now that chair you almost shed, you caught it mid-fall and told, I told. Nah, we don't do that anymore, because you realize something powerful. They never deserved you, and that's not bitterness. That's just clarity. You were out here showing loyalty to people who couldn't even spell it, folks. Out here treating relationships like a buffet, taking what they want, leaving when they're full, and acting like they don't know you. When the check comes, nah, we ain't doing that no more. You got a PhD in emotional endurance and a black belt in getting played. But now you're retired from bowl. You've graduated kapow tansel turn. You've earned your peace. You're not going to waste one more second wondering why somebody didn't choose. You chose yourself, and that was the plot twist they never saw coming. Let them wonder why you don't call no more. Let them text wad and get hit with that permanent delivered status. You ain't mad, you just move differently. See you finally. Understand love without boundaries. Ain't love that self-sacrifice disguised as loyalty. You gave your all to people who wouldn't even give you their full attention, and now you're supposed to feel bad for walking away easy. The only thing you feel is peace. You cried your last tear because your spirit finally stood up and said, we done. You dried your face, fixed your crown, and said, let me stop watering dead plants and start building my own garden. And guess what? In that garden, your joy grows, your confidence blooms, your worth shines. And nobody gets to come trample on you just because they showed up late with an apology and a smooth voice. That version of you that used to overextend, over-explain, over-give gone. You're not cold-hearted, you're just done playing the fool. And from here on out, the only tears falling off from laughter at the old version of yourself trying so hard to please people who didn't even clap for you, cried your last tear over people who never deserved your loyalty. And it feels good, doesn't it? Hear me, nobody and nothing will ever hurt you again. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Let that marinate for a second. The world is out here playing its little games, trying to hit you with every curveball and obstacle it can throw at you. People lie, betray, and throw dirt on your name. But here's the thing. None of that matters anymore. You've leveled up, you've changed. And when you change, the game changed. It's not that the world's become a better place. No, the world's still the world. People still out here acting like they're doing you a favor by showing up in your life and handing you some half-hearted loyalty. You still got folks talking behind your back like you're the problem. You got situations that look like they're out to break you. But the moment you recognize your own strength, the moment you realize that your peace isn't for sale, the world can't touch you. See, the game's the same, but now you're playing it differently. What do I mean? I mean that once you change your mindset, once you stop expecting people to treat you like you're a doormat, once you stop chasing validation from folks who never understood your value, you become untouchable. And I'm not talking about some cool, calm, collected type of untouchable. Nah, I'm talking about a you can't even find the address to hurt me anymore kind of untouchable. That's how you step into your power. The hurt you used to feel when somebody disrespected you, that hurt doesn't exist anymore. Why? Because your expectations shift. You stop looking for people to get you stop trying to prove to people that you're worthy of love, respect, or loyalty. You don't prove nothing to nobody. Got nothing to prove. Because you know who you are now. You've discovered your worth. And it ain't based on how others see you. It's based on how you see yourself. And guess what? Not mad. Imagine not angry. Not out here seeking. Revenge, you're just walking your path with the understanding that some people and some situations were never meant to be a part of your journey. And that's fine. You can say goodbye without guilt. You can block that number without hesitation. You can cut people off without feeling bad because you know you got bigger things to do than to keep carrying dead weight. And when I say nobody or nothing will hurt you again, I'm not saying you won't feel pain, not saying you won't go through challenges. I'm saying the impact of the pain, the depth of the hurt, it won't break you anymore, not because the world stopped doing what it does, but because you built a shield around your heart. That shield is your self-respect. That shield is your emotional boundaries. That shield is your belief in yourself, and it's rock solid. The disrespect that used to sting, just bounce it off. You're now like water off of duck's back. You don't need to retaliate. You don't need to clap back. Why? Because your peace, your power, and your words speak for themselves. You've got that kind of strength. The world can't hurt you. People can try, but their arrows fall short. And the funniest part, you don't even need to lift a finger to prove it. You just keep walking. So trust me when I tell you nothing will hurt you again. Not because the world suddenly changed. Now the change it came from within. You did that. Listen up, your peace is too expensive to be disturbed. I need you to understand what that means. You've worked too damn hard to get to this point. You put in the hours, the sleepless nights, the tears, the sweat, the grind, and yes, the heartache. All that was your tuition, your peace. That's the degree you earn. So now nobody gets to come in and throw a wrench in it for free. Now we don't do that. See, when you start understanding your worth, when you start really walking in your value, you realize that peace ain't something you just hand out like candy. That's not a giveaway. It's earned. It's hard won. It's something that you've invested in. You'll be damned if anyone gets to disturb it just because they're having a bad day or because they don't know how to respect boundaries. Let's be real for a minute. People out here act like your peace is free. Like it's a thing you can just throw around for their convenience. They come into your life dragging their mess, their drama, their chaos, and expect you to just accept it. Nah, you've been through enough to know that you can't let that slide anymore. You're not a punching bag for someone else's emotional baggage. You're not a therapist on call. You've got your own life to live, and you're not going to let anyone disrupt your hard-earned peace, period. People who don't value your peace, oh, they'll try to come in with their selfishness, their manipulations, their negativity. They'll pull you into their nonsense like it's some kind of spectator sport. You think I'm going to sit around letting someone else's chaos become my problem? Absolutely not. That's like buying an expensive bottle of wine, letting someone spill it on the floor, and then sitting there apologizing for it. Now, you treat that bottle like it's gold. And if someone's trying to spill it, they can't sit at your table. You don't just allow anyone into your space anymore. If someone brings you more drama than joy, they can't. Stay on the other side of the door. Your peace is like a VIP section. Now only those who respect it get access. You've learned the hard way that not everyone deserves a seat at your table, and now you protect that table like it's your empire. You got standards, and those standards include no disturbances. Your peace, it's priceless. So why would you let anyone devalue it? And let's talk about these people who want to show up and act like you owe them your time, your energy, your emotions. Nah, you ain't a free therapy session. You're not a stress sponge. You're not here to fix anyone else's mess while your life's in shambles. Your peace is so much more valuable than that. So, when people come knocking with their drama, you don't even open the door. You don't answer that call. You don't respond to that text. You hit them with the delivered and keep it pushing. Not that you don't care about others. It's that you care about yourself enough to protect your peace. You've got boundaries now. You've got a no drama policy. And if you want to be a part of my life, you better come correct. You better come with respect, with positivity, with some kind of peace of your own to offer. And let's be clear, this ain't arrogance. This is wisdom. This is self-respect. This is knowing exactly who you are, you've been through, and where you're going. And when you get that clear, your peace is no longer up for grab. It's off limits. It's yours. And if anyone tries to mess with it, you send them a polite reminder, I worked too hard for this, and I'm not giving it up for anybody. So guard your peace like it's the most expensive thing you own, because it is. You've earned it. You don't chase, you don't beg, and you don't fold, but you know your worth. You know exactly who you are and what you bring to the table, and you're not going to lower yourself to beg for someone's attention or chase after people who can't even appreciate what you've got to offer. Let me tell you something. When you start chasing, you're telling the world that you're not enough. You're telling the world that you're willing to fight for scraps when the whole feast is waiting for you. That's what happens when you start chasing. You lose yourself. You lose your dignity, you lose your power, and you're out here running in circles hoping someone will give you the recognition, the love, the loyalty you think you deserve. But here's the truth. If you have to chase, it wasn't meant for you in the first place. You don't chase people, you don't chase opportunities, you don't chase validation. Why? Because if it's meant for you, it'll come to you. You're too busy working on becoming the best version of yourself, putting in the work building your legacy, to be out here running after things that might notice you. If they don't see the value in you right now, they'll catch up later, or they'll be left behind and begging. No, you ain't begging for anything. You're not begging for someone's attention, not begging for someone to love you, not begging for a seat at their table if they can't see you for who you are. If they can't recognize your worth, then they don't get to sit in your presence. Simple, your presence is too valuable to be wasted on people who don't know how to appreciate it. If they out here making you feel like you're begging for their approval. Hey, I don't deserve. You know what's wild? The people who need to beg are the ones who don't have anything to offer. The ones who don't know their worth. For the ones always trying to earn a place, a role, or some recognition. But you're not doing that. You're not out here groveling for respect as something you earn, sure. But you demand it by showing up as the person who already knows they're worthy. Love it? You're not chasing or begging for a seat at the table because you built your own table. You created a whole empire for yourself, and don't even get me started on folding. Now listen up. You're going to face some tough times, going to face some moments where it feels like everything's falling apart. You're going to face some people who try to break you, manipulate you, make you doubt yourself. But here's the thing. You don't fold. Never. May bend, but you don't break. You stand tall, you stand strong, you keep moving forward no matter how hard it gets. You've been through too much to fold your history, your struggle, your story. It's all proof that you built for. This, you've overcome obstacles that would have made weaker people quit. And you still here stronger than that, but you're the fold because you know the battle's not over yet. You know the war ain't lost. You've got something that most people don't, resilience. So stop worrying about the people who want you to chase. Beg or fold. Stop letting them make you feel like you need their approval. You don't need anything from them. What you need is to stay focused on your own journey and keep your head high and keep your peace. And if someone can't recognize that, then watch from the sideline. You're not out here begging for a seat. You've already got a throne, all right? Listen up. Because this one's real solitude gave you clarity. And you like what you saw now before you start thinking. This is some deep philosophical nonsense. Let me break it down for you. Solitude isn't the same as loneliness feels. like you're missing something. You feel empty. You feel like you need someone else to complete you. With solitude, that's a whole different vibe. Solitude is when you sit with yourself, when you get quiet and you finally hear your own thoughts without all the noise. And let me tell you something. You learn more about yourself in that silence than you ever did when you were running around trying to please everybody else. See, you didn't always have this level of clarity. Oh, no, not. At first you were out there caught up in the hustle, the chaos, the distractions, trying to be everything to everyone, trying to make everybody happy. But that's exhausting, right? Always running around looking for validation, looking for approval, trying to live up to someone else's expectations. You realize that your own voice had been drowned out for far too long, and that's when the magic happened. You started hearing yourself think. You started getting real with yourself. You started asking the hard questions. What do I really want? What's my purpose? What makes me happy? And you know what? You started finding the answers in that quiet, in that solitude. You found clarity. You found peace in the truth about who you are and what you want. And guess what you like? What you saw. That's the kicker. You looked in the mirror and realized you weren't the problem. You weren't broken. You weren't messed up. You were just misunderstood, distracted, and surrounded by people who didn't know how to recognize your worth. You saw that all the things that were wrong in your life weren't because of you. And once you took a step back and shut out that noise, you saw yourself for what you really are. Powerful, capable, worthy of everything you've dreamed. Now, I'm not saying you figured everything out overnight. This wasn't some magic moment where all your problems just disappeared. No, but solitude gave you the space to stop pretending, to stop wearing masks for the world, to stop faking like you had it all together. When inside you were struggling, you gave yourself the permission to breathe, to grow, to heal. And in that process, you realized that you were a whole lot stronger, a whole lot smarter, and a whole lot more capable than you ever gave yourself credit for. And that's the beauty of solitude. It's not just about being alone. It's about becoming the person you always meant to be. It's about standing in your own truth and saying, you know what, I'm all right. It's not perfect, but I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be right now. And that's enough. So when people try to tell you that solitude's some sad, lonely thing, you can laugh, because you know what? It really is freedom to finally hear your own voice, freedom to find your own path, freedom to like what you see when you look in the mirror and don't let anyone tell you that being alone means you're missing out on life, you're learning who you really are, and that clarity is what's going to take you to the next level. All right, let's dive in. You let silence be the lesson. Now hold up before you start thinking, I'm about to get all Zen master on you. Let's break this down. Silence ain't just about keeping your mouth shut. It's not just about being quiet. It's about something deeper. It's about letting the absence of words, letting the space between the noise become the teacher. And trust me, when you start letting silence do the talking, you learn more than you ever could with a mouthful of words. See, the world is loud, right? It's full of people talking, giving their opinions, trying to tell you who you should be, what you should do, how you should live. They're out here filling up your head with noise, with expectations, with all their own agendas. And you know what happens? You start listening. You start buying into all of it. You start thinking you need to follow what everyone else says. You start believing that everybody else knows what's best for you. But here's the problem. They don't, not even close. And the more you listen to the noise, the more you lose yourself. That's where silence comes in. It's not about blocking out the world. It's about listening to yourself. Because when you get quiet, you finally hear your own thoughts. You hear what your soul's been trying to tell you all along. You hear the truth. And that truth, it will hit you like a ton of bricks. You see, silence does something powerful. It forces you to confront yourself when everything else is stripped away. When the noise is gone, you're left with just you, and that's when you start seeing things clearly. You start recognizing what's real and what's fake. You start recognizing where you've been lying to yourself, where you've been letting people treat you less than you deserve. Silence is the mirror that reflects everything you need to see about yourself and your life. And when you look into that mirror, you can't help but realize you're stronger than you thought. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds great. But how do I let silence teach me? When the world's out here making noise, well, that's the thing. You don't have to force it. Sometimes the best lesson comes when you stop trying so hard, when you stop chasing approval, when you stop worrying about what everyone else is doing, and instead you let your silence do the talking. You let it show you the way. You know how sometimes people try to get under your skin, start talking trash, trying to pull you into their drama. You know what I'm talking about, right? Some people love to stir the pot. They want to get you worked up. But here's the thing. When you let silence be your response, it leaves them with nothing to fight against. They're over there running their miles, and you're just chilling, calm, composed silence. That's like a power move. It's like saying, I'm not going to lower myself to your level. I'm not going to waste my energy on your nonsense. And let me tell you something, when you stop reacting to the chaos, and when you stop trying to prove something, when you let silence do the work for you, that's when the real lesson happens. That's when you get to see how strong you really are, how untouchable you really are. You're not out here fighting for attention. You're not out here begging for validation. You just sit back, let the world scream and shout, and you know that you've already won. You don't need to say a word. Your silence is the victory. So the next time someone tries to pull you into their mess, the next time life throws you a curveball, remember this. Let silence be the lesson. Let it teach you peace. Let it teach you that you don't have to engage with every single thing that comes your way, because the real power, it's in the quiet. And in that silence, my friend, you'll find your strength. All right, let's get into this. They knock, but the door doesn't open. Not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. Now, you might be thinking, wait, what's the deal with the door? Well, that's a good question. And let me tell you, sometimes the best way to deal with certain people and situations isn't by slamming the door in their face, but simply by not opening it. Not because you're holding on to some grudge or because you've got a personal vendetta, but because you've learned something deeper, something more important. Wisdom, you see, when you're younger, or maybe when you're caught up in a moment, you think the world's all about the giving everyone a chance, right? You think it's about being open, about letting people in, about always doing the right thing by giving them another shot. But here's the thing. Not everyone deserves that shot. Some people are out here just trying to waste your time. They knock on your door, maybe with some sad excuse or some well-rehearsed apology, and expect you to just let them in, but you've been through too much to fall for that nonsense anymore. Life's funny like that. You'll spend years trying to be there for people who don't even know how to be there for themselves. And then one day something clicks. You start realizing that opening the door every time when someone knocks isn't a sign of strength. It's a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you haven't learned the lesson. And the moment you learn that lesson, that's when things change. That's when the door stays closed. Not because you're holding on to past pain or bitter, but because you've got wisdom. Now, I'm not saying you should be cold-hearted or shut people out entirely. I'm not saying you shouldn't forgive. What I'm saying is there's a difference between offering grace and being a doormat, and guess what? You ain't no doormat. So when those same people come knocking, you don't have to react out of anger or resentment. You don't have to be like, oh, you think you're just going to walk back into my life like nothing happened? Nah, man, it doesn't work like that. You just recognize that the door doesn't need to open, not because you've got a chip on your shoulder, but because you've grown. And that's the beautiful part about wisdom. It gives you the strength to stand firm. You don't have to argue with people. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to give them the satisfaction of seeing you hurt, frustrated or upset. You simply don't open the door and they get it. They might not get it right away, but that's okay. It's not your job to make them understand. It's your job to make sure you understand. You understand that not everyone deserves to be in your life. You understand that not every situation is worth your time. You understand that your peace is worth way more than any apology they can throw your way now. I know it might sound harsh to some people. They'll say, but you're supposed to forgive. You're supposed to let people in. You're supposed to be the bigger person. Look, forgiveness is one thing, but opening the door to people who will just bring chaos back into your life, that's something entirely different. You've been through the battles, you've fought the wars, and you've come out stronger on the other side. You've earned the right to protect your peace, your energy, your space. And if that means not opening the door to certain people, then that's what it means, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. So next time they knock, you don't need to make a scene. You don't need to yell, scream, or explain yourself. You just stand there calm and collected, knowing you've made the right choice. Because wisdom knows that sometimes silence is the most powerful response. Ladies and gentlemen, let's break this down. You ain't cold, you're focused. You ain't distant, you're disciplined. Now, I know what shake y'all is cold. Am I supposed to just shut people out and walk around like I got ice running through my veins? Nah, ho, up, huh? That's not the game we're playing here. You're not out here being a robot or a villain in some movie. What you are doing is something far more powerful. You're focused. See, people love to label you. They love to say, oh, you're so cold. You're acting like you don't care. You don't show emotion. And here's the thing. Let them say, let them run their mouths. The truth is, you're not cold. You're focused. You ain't out here wasting time on drama, gossip, or nonsense. You got a vision. You got goals. You ain't got time to be distracted by people who can't keep up with the pace you're setting. Think about it the moment you start getting serious about your life, about your mission, your purpose. They're going to be people who can't handle it. They'll start thinking you're ignoring them, acting funny, or that you've somehow changed. But what's really happening is this. You're making a choice. You're choosing to prioritize your growth, your dreams, and your peace. You're not choosing to ignore them. You're choosing to ignore the distractions. And that's where the focus comes in. Now let's flip it. The next time someone calls you distant or tries to say you're being standoffish, you've got to check them with this. You're not distant. You're disciplined. There's a difference. See, when you're disciplined, you understand that you can't be everywhere and you can't be for everyone. You know where your energy needs to go. And it sure as hell ain't going into the same old cycles that got you stuck in. The first place, when you're disciplined, you know what you're building. And you know that not every person, every conversation, or every event is worth your time. So yeah, you might seem distant to someone who isn't on the same wavelength. But what you're really doing is protecting your energy discipline, is what keeps you from running after every shiny object that passes by. It's what stops you from saying yes to every invite, every person, every opportunity that comes your way, because not everything is meant for you. Not every phone call is worth answering. Not every person deserves your attention. And that's the kind of discipline you need if you're serious about reaching the next level. So when people start whispering about how cold you are, how distant you become, you got to smile and know that you're winning. Why? Because focus and discipline are what separate the winners from the rest, everyone else out. They're as caught up in the noise. They're jumping from one thing to the next all over the place, never staying committed to one path. But you're focused, you've got your eyes on the prize, and you're not going to let anything or anyone get in the way. And here's the kicker. Don't feel bad about it. Don't feel bad about being focused. Don't feel bad about putting in the work while others are out there chasing distractions. You're not cold. you're strategic, you're not distant, you're deliberate. And let me tell you something, when you stick to that path, when you keep your eyes locked on what matters, you'll be the one sitting at the top, while the rest of them are still figuring out. So the next time they call you cold, you let them know you ain't cold, you're focused. And the next time they try to say you're distant, you remind them you ain't distant, you're disciplined. And that's the kind of person who's going to make it. All right? Here we go. You don't chase closure, you are the closure. Now some of y'all out there probably thinking, hold on, what's this about closure? You know, we've all been there, stuck in a situation, stuck in a relationship, stuck in something that just won't let go. You're sitting there wondering, man, why can't I get the closure? Why can't I get the answers? Why can't I get some kind of explanation? But here's the truth. You don't need closure. You are all the closure. Let me break this down for you. We've all been caught up in the illusion that closure comes from someone. Else you think if you get that phone call, if you get that apology, if you get that explanation, it'll fix everything, right? It'll give you peace. Make sense of all the chaos. You'll be able to move on with your life. But what if I told you that's all a trap? What if I told you that you're the one who can close the chapter, not them? You see, closure is something we think we need from other people. We think it's a conversation, a moment of truth, a magic word that somehow makes everything make sense. But nah, real talk closure is a decision. It's a choice you make the day you realize you're the one who controls whether or not something is done. That's the day everything changes. You're sitting there waiting for someone to give you the answers, right? Wait for that conversation where they explain why they did you wrong or why they didn't show up. You're sitting there thinking, if I just hear them say this one thing, I'll be at peace. And that's not how it works. The truth is, they don't owe you an explanation. They don't owe you closure. They owe you nothing. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you realize you've been holding your own keys to the door the entire time. You ain't chasing after some explanation that doesn't exist. You're not out here running down answers from people who